I'm Annicken R, and I'm here to talk about how to create thriving, high-performing team cultures in times of uncertainty and rapid change. A reality I think most of us can relate to these days, right? In this new reality, where old ways had to be thrown overboard, remote working and hybrid working has actually become the new norm. And while many circumstances are entirely outside our control, it is more important than ever that we stay focused on the things we can do something about and what truly matters and impacts your organization and the people in it. How can we best lead, inspire, and help our teams perform at their best in times of uncertainty and change? That is what I will be talking about today. I will share 3 business strategies with you today that are so powerful that when you start working with them, they have the capacity to transform your team, your results, your company, and even the lives of the people working in it. For nearly 2 decades, I have worked with and taught leaders around the world these strategies, and they have led to world-class innovation, best places to work awards, and extraordinary performance for the companies I've worked for and with. The 3 powerful business strategies are humane leadership, conscious cultures, and high-performing team cultures. The 3 strategies are interdependent, each of them reinforcing and building on each other. But they all require special attention as each of them has a strong impact on the well-being and performance of your team. They provide a holistic approach to organizational life, they are founded on scientific evidence, and they are designed in a way that leaders immediately can put them into practice. And I hope that after this presentation, you will want to do that too. And with that, let's dive into the first of the 3 powerful business strategies. Back in the days, leaders could get away with being bosses, telling people what to do, how to do it, using carrot and stick, reward and punishment as methods to make people do the job. People were considered numbers, resources, and headcounts, and treated accordingly. In some companies and cultures, this is still the norm, but thankfully it is a slowly dying tradition. Many call it industrial age management or dinosaur leadership style. Symptomatic for companies that aren't able to follow the changing times, attract the greatest talents, or get the best out of the people that they have. Today, being a leader, it's a field and a competence of its own and require motivation, skills, and proper training. Many leaders have become leaders or managers because they are great in their profession, not necessarily because they have great people and leadership skills. Far too few companies pay enough attention to what it means to be an effective leader in the 21st century and what mindsets and skills it requires. And it is hurting their businesses. So what does it mean to be an effective leader today? As with most things in life and business, there is not one answer or one size that fits all. But one thing that is quite clear is that what used to be considered effective really isn't anymore. In a world in constant change, we need leaders who show direction, inspire, empower their teams, so they're able to move as quickly as they need in an increasingly complex and competitive business world. A new leadership style is emerging in companies around the world, and it is much more humane way of leading than we traditionally have been seeing. When leaders start showing more of their authentic selves, in other words, when they start becoming more human, they immediately connect easier with their employees, create new levels of trust in their organization, and create an environment where others dare to show up as themselves too. But what leadership style you choose, let's make one thing clear. Leading people isn't easy. How can it be? People are humans, messy, complicated, diverse, emotional, and wonderful creatures with different needs, expectations, challenges, worldviews, hopes, fears, and dreams. What motivates one demotivates another. What makes some feel seen makes others feel ignored. What some consider fun, others find offensive. And what makes some people grow can make other people shrink. So how can you, as a leader, please them all? Well, you can't. But there's one thing you can do, and that is to stop acting like a leader and instead be one. Studies show that leaders who are perceived as authentic, honest, self-aware, and humble of their own shortcomings are more trusted, considered more inspiring, and easier forgiven when they make mistakes than those who put on an act. People don't want perfection from their leaders, they want humanness. Yet this is something we still don't see a lot of in the corporate world. Many leaders I work with have told me that they started their careers with copying the leadership styles of senior leaders, regardless of whether they liked their style or not. I'd seen what worked for others, so then I figured it would work for me too, a leader once told me. He had seen that those who grabbed power, they got power. Those who spoke loudest were listened to. Those who stepped on others moved quicker up the corporate ladder. And when they arrived at the top, they acted as if the gods themselves had put them up there. It was the only way I knew how to be. It was the only way I'd seen, he told me. In one way, being a copycat had worked out for him because it had taken up the corporate ladder and made him a CEO. However, when he finally got to the top of the corporate hierarchy, he was miserable. His team was miserable. And needless to say, the business results were miserable too. As the world has transformed, the role of the leader has transformed as well. While command and control leadership style might have been effective once upon a time, in a world of constant change, this simply doesn't work anymore. At least not if you need to grow, innovate, and deliver great results. And who doesn't need that, right? The last decade, we have seen a stronger focus on a new set of leadership skills, which is about building trust and engaging people instead of controlling them. But with exponential changes to a large extent driven by new technologies and the state of the world, leaders will need to up their game even more. Leading in uncertainty, handling complexity, leading remotely have become important leadership skills, not only to handle the current situation, but also to continue to grow and thrive in the future. And this requires a fundamentally new skill set for many leaders, far from what many have learned in business school and seen from their own leaders in the past. Power, it's not what it once was. While traditional leaders think that holding on to control is what gives them power, in the new world of work, the ones who let go of control not only create more trust and win their people's respect, they end up creating much more empowered and powerful teams and organizations too. You will never have as much power as when you give your power away. When you empower your teams, you demonstrate that you trust them. You give them permission to think for themselves, to try new things, to learn and grow and master new skills. When you let go of your need to control, you let them find their own way, maybe even make a couple of mistakes on the way. And you will get the gift of watching them from a healthy distance grow, perform, and thrive. You will see them take initiative. You will see them innovate and do great work, not because you tell them to, but because they really, really want to. I usually tell the leaders I advise that being a humane leader may be difficult and a bit uncomfortable to begin with, at least if you're used to playing that traditional leadership role. But I also tell them that as soon as you do, not only will you see the people you work with start relating to you differently and see your organization change, flourish, and perform better, but your own life will get better and easier as well. And who doesn't want that, right? While culture has become a bit of a buzzword in the corporate world lately, there is still a lot of misconception of what culture really is. Some seem to think that culture is about football tables and Friday beers. Others refers to culture as something vague and touchy-feely, difficult to measure and impossible to shape. And with all those statements, I respectfully disagree. Culture is not a soft concept. Culture is how work is done in your company. It's how people work together, communicate, collaborate, what they prioritize, how they solve problems, the way colleagues treat each other, and how they treat your customers. There are basically two ways that you can approach your culture. Either consciously, which is about deliberately building the culture you need to motivate and guide your team's behaviors in support of your purpose and long-term business strategies. Or unconsciously, which is basically doing nothing and just let your culture evolve by chance. And weirdly enough, the last approach is the approach most companies have taken up till now. Taking a conscious approach to your culture is to decide to understand and consciously shape the culture you need so it supports what you're here to do. And the best way to do that is to begin with taking a deep look into your corporate soul. What are the things you collectively believe in and value as a team and organization? How do these values influence your collective mindset? How do your values and mindset influence the team's behaviors? And how do these behaviors show up in your day-to-day work? Your collective behaviors become your culture. Then ask yourself, is the culture you have supporting what you're here to do? Or is it in any way working against it? A leader I was working with explained to me that she was proud of her company culture because everyone were so self-motivated and independent. However, after we had talked for a while, it turned out that the culture they had actually was a bit counterproductive to their company's need of having the team members work closely together on projects with tight deadlines. So she had been aware of the importance of culture, but not necessarily conscious about the advantages or disadvantages of the culture they had. They had never really asked themselves what kind of culture they needed, so in a way it had just evolved by chance. But after she realized the challenge, she facilitated a discussion with her team where they looked at where the company was heading, what it would take to get them there, what they needed to do more of and less of to work more effectively together, and they ended up creating some guiding principles that would inspire and guide their choices and priorities. She later told me that they had been able to keep the advantage of self-motivated people combined with the new insight that as a team, they were actually dependent on each other's contributions and needed to work as a team and not as many individuals. When you take a conscious approach to your culture, you typically analyze where your culture is at and where it needs to be in order for your organization to work at its best, and then make culture development or culture change part of your business strategy. You also take an honest look on the way you're organized, the systems and structure you have in place, what kind of behavior you celebrate and incentivize, the way you manage performance, learning, talents, and culture. Culture and structure is interdependent, and the culture you want to create needs to be reflected in the structure you have in place. If your system works against the culture you want to create, you need to start making changes there too. Like the executive who on his Christmas speech to all employees said he wanted to have a culture where people felt trusted and empowered to take personal initiative. Yet, the company had rigid expense control, so a salesperson couldn't even buy a client a coffee without asking for permission. So it's not about what you say, but how things actually work. Companies who not only make culture changes, but also is willing to make changes to their systems and processes, and sometimes even the way they are organized, are the ones who are most successful at consciously transforming their culture. Conscious culture is about reinforcing what is great and changing what is not. It is about paying attention to how things are working or not, and what you can do to make things better. It's an ongoing dialogue, and everyone in the team needs to be part of it. Management guru Peter Drucker said already in the 1960s that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We cannot predict the future, and we cannot do much about events outside our control. We can, however, create conscious, inspired, and resilient cultures with teams that easily adapt to new situations, turn challenges into opportunities, and are able and willing to handle come what may. For the last 15 years, my team and I have worked with the model I'm now about to share with you, the Powerfull Teams model, which is a holistic, practical, and highly effective way to build high-performing team cultures, and it's been tested on hundreds of teams around the world and has led to extraordinary innovation, engagement, performance, and business results. At first sight, it might remind some of you of Maslow's hierarchies of needs, and it is indeed built around the same principles of having to have a foundation in place in order to get to the next level. So I will now take you through the model step by step, and I promise you, if you invest time, energy, and wholeheartedly embark on this journey with your team, you will be seeing some extraordinary outcomes, not only in team performance, but also in the happiness and well-being of your team members and your long-time business success. The first building block, it's purpose. A large amount of research has been showing us that having a purpose, to feel that what we do is meaningful, not only to ourselves, but also to others, is a fundamental human need. And it is as true in business as in life. Many employees struggle with seeing the purpose of their work task, focusing on what they do instead of why they do it. And I often say that if you don't know why you do what you do and no one can explain it to you, it's probably a sign you shouldn't be doing it. Way too many people find themselves in situations where they perform seemingly meaningless work tasks simply because that's the way it's always been done. By paying attention to your why, you make sure that whatever your team is spending time on is in support of your team's purpose and goals. But what if your team or company doesn't have a purpose? Well, then it's time to develop one. And not by sitting alone in an office and figuring out something smart on your own, but by involving your team in the process. To come together and discuss and agree on your reason for existing, how you're making a difference in the world or in someone's world, and to put words to those emotions that fill your hearts with pride and purpose and passion. That is, in my experience, the most effective way of creating a powerful team purpose. If you work in a big company, there may already be a high-level company purpose in place. Yet people may struggle with seeing their connection to it and how they impact it in any way. By creating a team purpose aligned with the overall company purpose is also a way to make things more real, relatable, and motivational to people. When people have a clear why, the how and the what comes easier. When teams have been involved in the process of creating it, their ownership and commitment to it becomes a powerful force in itself. When you have developed your purpose, make it an ongoing dialogue with your team. Talk about what it means. Help everyone see it in what way they contribute to it and why what they do matters. It can be as simple as helping the customer-facing employees understand how they are influencing the company brand through the way they show up, or to help someone who's working on a seemingly small task or project understand that what they do is an important component to the company's overall services, products, or customer promise. The next building block is identity, to have a clear sense of who you are, what you stand for, the values you share, and create a sense of belonging, to be part of something greater than yourself. From the beginning of humankind, the need of feeling the comfort and safety of being part of a group is part of our DNA. Back when humans were living amongst wild animals on the savannah, being part of a group that protected each other and were strong together was essential to our survival. A newborn child can only live if someone takes care of it and makes sure it is nourished and being cared for. So our dependency on others and our need of belonging to a family, a group, a tribe, or a team is so hardwired in us that the feeling of loneliness, in fact, is considered a serious disease with both psychological and physical implications. As a leader, spending time with your team in defining your own team's or company's identity will not only provide clarity for existing and new team members of who you are as a team, but also create a strong sense of belonging and pride within the team. While purpose is your why, identity is your who, and putting words to your who is an important and impactful thing to do with your team. To talk about the values you share, the mindset you choose, the kind of behaviors you like to see in each other, the culture you want to create, and how this ultimately becomes your identity. And whether this is supporting your purpose, objectives, and business goals, or whether adjustments needs to be made. A team I recently worked with had partly based their identity on an anti-remote work attitude. Needless to say, they had to go another round and redefine who they were now, when everyone suddenly found themselves in a home office, and they had to figure out entirely new ways of working and communicating and collaborating. So this team, they ended up defining themselves as someone who once were against remote work, but now were believers in the power of collaboration technologies. Turned out they were more productive than ever, and they were able to keep the team vibe alive with virtual coffee breaks, video lunches, and Friday beers and pop quiz. A team identity is based on a set of shared values, and it can indeed show up differently depending on the circumstances. What is at the core is that you are in it together, not only as work colleagues, but as a real team. The third foundational building block is trust, which is an emotion, a firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. When you're in a trusting environment, you typically feel that you can be yourself, that it's safe to speak your opinion, and that if you should be in trouble or make a mistake, someone will have your back. A large amount of research shows that psychological safety is such a fundamental need for people and teams to function optimally, and that without trust, creativity is stifled, innovation hardly happens, performance and productivity are negatively influenced, and the long-term organizational and financial health of a company is severely hurt. The tricky thing about trust is that it takes a long time to build and can so quickly be destroyed. Consistency over time is said to be the one thing that creates the greatest levels of trust, that there are predictability in someone's behavior, that they do what they say they will, and they are who they say they are. Corporate politics is a trust killer of huge dimensions and something many companies struggle with. And as a leader, it's so important to set out to create an environment where people are encouraged to be themselves, that political games are not tolerated, and where you go first with being authentic, real, and as honest and transparent as you possibly can be. To build a trusting culture, you need to put your trust in people. The best way to see if someone is trustworthy is to trust them, Hemingway famously said. To choose trust over distrust does not only empower others, it tends to install a new sense of responsibility in people, a willingness to go the extra mile, and makes people also trust you back. In a remote or hybrid work environment, having a trusting culture is more important than ever. Letting go of the need of controlling what people do, how they do it, and where they work from is something all leaders should learn. And COVID-19 situation has given you an excellent opportunity to practice it. When you choose trust over control, empowerment over power, you may be surprised how differently people will show up and behave. Trust creates trustworthiness, and it all starts with you. With these three fundamental building blocks in place, you have created a great foundation for a high-performing team culture, and it is time to take it one level further. Creating a culture of growth mindsets, unless you're already there, can be a transformative experience, not only for your team, but also for the personal lives of the people in it. Over and over again, I have, before my very eyes, seen what happens to people and teams when they learn about the power of mindsets. The fact that they can consciously choose them, and that we're not victims of circumstances outside our control. When people learn that emotions like resistance and fear of change is a natural and very human response, that there is something called the emotional change curve that we all go through in various degrees, you can talk about change in a more humane, constructive, and even humorous way. Oh, you already moved into acceptance. I'm afraid I'm a bit stuck in the swamp of despair for the time being. When we acknowledge our emotions instead of resisting or being ashamed of them, we not only take some of the edge of our own reaction, we also allow for others to be open about theirs. And together we can move way quicker through stages of fear, grief, frustration, and move into a place of acceptance, new orientation, and helping each other, seeing opportunities in the face of uncertainty and change. When we learn to embrace our humanness and recognize it in others, we become more compassionate people. We become more positive and empowered in our outlook on life's many situations. And we make choices that will move us forward and into new territory instead of clinging to what once was. The wonderful thing about mindset is that it is something within every individual's control. Even though many tend to think they are born with a certain way to see and meet the world, neuroscience shows us that our minds are way more plastic than we have earlier thought. That we can indeed change our outlook on situations, our own abilities, and we can, if we only become more aware of the power of our minds. When we make new and deliberate mindset choices over time, we are in fact changing the circuit of our minds. So after a while, this new way of thinking becomes our new default mode. Of all the things I've been teaching over the years, I will without doubt say that this is the most powerful one. I've seen people, organizations, and lives change before my eyes. Just by people realizing that they have a choice of where they will put their attention, that they can indeed choose their mindset, and all the positive consequences that follow by them making those different choices. What we see is what we perceive. When you decide to change the lenses in your glasses, the world may in fact change colors and be much better, just because you decide that it is. Today, when all of us have been tested on living in uncertainty, having a growth mindset is more important than ever. It makes us look for the good, be grateful for what we have, focus on finding new solutions, and staying firm in our belief that out of crisis comes growth, and those who dare living outside our comfort zones, we will find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, whatever that looks like for us. Well, for me, that looks like the top of the Powerfull Teams model, a life full of passion and joy. Harvard's happiness researcher Sean Aker writes in his book, The Happiness Advantage, how companies with a positive and happy work culture are way more successful than those without the happiness advantage. Aker confirms that our reality is not necessarily what shapes us, but rather the lens that we view our world through that shapes our reality. If we can change the lens, we can change our experience. According to Aker, only 25% of job success is based on our intelligence and ambition. The other 75% of job success are predicted by positivity, attitude, optimism, social support, and ability to see stress as a challenge instead of a threat. His research shows when someone is completing a task with a positive mindset, or a happiness advantage as he calls it, they are 31% more productive in completing the task than if they felt negative, neutral, or stressed. When people feel happy, their intelligence, creativity, and energy levels rise significantly. It turns out that the conventional wisdom that says, if I work harder, I will be more successful, and if I'm more successful, I will be happier, got it all wrong. Research shows us that happiness leads to success, not the other way around. Studies made on teams and organizations that reaches this level of passion and joy, or highly engaged as they often are referred to, can show for some extraordinary results, both personal health and happiness for the people working there, and greater levels of innovation, performance, and profitability for the companies. Therefore, as a leader, creating a positive work environment where creativity, innovation, and productivity flourish, and create a culture of passion and joy is the most impactful and powerful thing you can do to create a high-performing team culture. And consciously working with a powerful teams model will most likely take you closer to that goal. Which takes me back to the 3 powerful business strategies: humane leadership, conscious cultures, and high-performing team cultures. They may or may not have taught you these things in business school, but believe me when I say that investing time and energy in these 3 powerful business strategies will take you a long way. But please also let me remind you that it won't happen by itself. Any changes you may want to create for your team will need to start with a look in the mirror. It will need to start with you. Most of us would like to change others, but very few would like to change ourselves. And I'll be the first to admit that. But if you feel the call and would want to make a few changes to the way you think, work, or lead, all of them, to be the kind of leader 21st century work life and your team needs you to be, I will share a few tips that can help you get started on your change journey. The first, believe in your ability to change. You know, some people don't think they can change, that they are the way they are and always have operated is the way they're just destined to stay forever. Thankfully, that's not true. In her book, Mindset, psychologist Carol Dweck writes about 2 opposite mindsets, growth and fixed mindset. People who have fixed mindsets believe that their talent, skills, and intelligence are static, a limited asset that cannot be changed. People with growth mindsets think their talent, skills, intelligence are flexible and can be developed, that they have the ability to learn, grow, and change. If you believe you can change, you will. If you don't believe you can, well, it starts with a change of mindset. Having a growth mindset is a choice you can make. What you believe becomes your reality. Believing in your own ability to change is step number 1 towards becoming the leader that you want to be. Number 2, set aside time for introspection. The unexamined life is not worth living, Socrates said. Taking time to reflect on who you are and who you want to be, that is key to learn, to grow, and change in the right direction. Reflect on your own values, your thoughts, your mindsets, and behaviors, and how these are expressed in your leadership role. That is an essential part of being a self-aware leader. Whether we want to admit it or not, our inner world is always reflected on the outside. What kind of leader do you want to be? What kind of values would you like to demonstrate? Which of your qualities would you like others to see? How would you like your employees to speak of you? How would you like to make them feel? Are you showing up as that person today? And if not, which behaviors would you need to change to become the leader that you want to be? Schedule some white space in your calendar, just some time with yourself. Take some deep breaths. Give yourself time to think, read, learn, unlearn, and relearn. Reflect on the choices and priorities you made. Test them against the things you believe in and value. And then take steps to self-correct behaviors that deviate from the person that you want to be. Number 3, get yourself a mentor. Partner up with an ally, a friend, a mentor who will be tasked with keeping you on track, to stay focused, to be accountable for the changes you commit to, and to get real-time feedback on progress or lack thereof. A good mentor is someone who wants to help you succeed by listening to your challenges, challenge your thinking, to help you grow and develop, and give you some candid feedback when called for. Great mentors also share freely from own experiences and failures, so you can learn from them as well. Mentors can be found inside or outside your company. It could be a coach, a leader, maybe a trusted friend. Just make sure to pick someone you know only has your best interest in mind. Number 4, trust the butterfly effect. Does the flap of a butterfly's wing in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? Mathematician and meteorologist and professor at MIT, Edward Lorenz, asked nearly 45 years ago. Lorenz is known for being the founder of modern chaos theory, which was followed by the butterfly effect, the idea that small changes can have large consequences. His research did indeed prove that small causes can have momentous effects. And the same theory can be applied to human behavior and leadership. Small changes in a leader's behavior can have profound impacts on the people they lead and the results they deliver. The shadow of the leader is long. People will mirror what they see, and even the smallest gesture, a smile, a kind word, and some meaningful feedback will motivate and engage people, inspire them to bring it forward, and energize them to go over and beyond in their jobs. And number 5, embrace the journey and enjoy the ride. Even though you may start out your change journey full of inspiration, ambition, and high energy, as soon as the distraction of everyday life takes over, it's easy to lose focus and quickly revert back to old habits and ways of being. Experience how hard change is, the effort it requires, and the time it takes. That's the reason why many give up, even before they've given it a real chance. If you feel despair sink in, remind yourself, change doesn't happen overnight, and the progress never happens in a straight line. Instead, look at it as change as a roller coaster ride. Ups and downs, twists and turns, unexpected experiences, sometimes fun, other times scary, but in the end, totally worth the trip. Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi wrote, "Just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly." Even though change may be hard, don't give up. Embrace the journey and enjoy the ride, and you will fly. Happy flying, everyone, and thank you.